Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us for this very important discussion. We have just been informed that due to work-related travel, Shri Rajesh Agarwal will unfortunately not be joining us today. His valuable insight and presence will be sincerely missed. Today we are in the company of neurodivergent individuals, parents, and friends and professionals from the sector. A special welcome to everyone watching us online via YouTube Live. Thank you for tuning in. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Before we proceed with the program, we would like to share a few pointers. Kindly ensure your phones are on silent mode throughout the program. Please save your questions for the end. The question and answer session will take place at the end. You will also have your questions ready for specific panelists. Mics have been set up on both sides of the venue. You may approach the mic to ask your questions. We have set things up in a way कि live streaming में हमारे को जो देख रहे हैं वो भी हम capture कर पाए. Shiba, Aisha, and other members of AFA are here to support you. We are all wearing our AFA badges. So please feel free to approach us if you need any assistance or guidance. I hope you all had a cup of coffee or a tea. We are ready to start off with our day today. Without further ado, I would like to now introduce the moderator for today's session, Professor Shubhangi Vaidya. And Shubhangi is wearing several different hats today. वो एक researcher तो है ही, and आज यहाँ पर she is also in capacity of a parent of a young autistic person. She has been associated with Action for Autism for about 25 years now. She is with the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies, IGNO. She is a sociologist by training with research interests in the fields of disability studies and gender studies. She has written several articles and books. She also advocates for the rights of persons with disability and their families. I request Professor Shubhangi to take this forward.
Thank you so much for that very generous introduction. Thank you, Action for Autism, for organizing such an important event today. Something which, as parents and caregivers, which I think most of us here present in this room are, is a very, very live and pressing issue for all of us. Despite all the changes that have happened over the years, despite all the laws, the policies, the various facilities that are now available for persons with disabilities, including persons with autism, the omnipresent question which nags at all of our hearts is, what will happen after me? And this question really needs to be reflected upon deeply, needs to be thought about. And also, the various new kinds of mobilizations, the various new kinds of facilities and opportunities that are available for persons on the spectrum need to be thought about, need to be explored, need to be discussed. And I think to facilitate this, today's very, very important discussion is going to happen. And we have with us four very, very powerful women. By powerful, I mean their power really extends to making the personal something which is social. In other words, they have managed to convey, or they managed to convert their personal issues into public and social commitments. So in a sense, they have taken autism, they've taken their family situation out to the wider community and striven to create structures and to create movements that will enable not just their own children, but also everybody's children. So I think let's give a round of applause before I introduce them. We are delighted to have Aparna Das, the founder director of Project Arunima, established in 2011. This is an assisted living center for adults with autism and other developmental disabilities in Dehradun. Aparna started her journey as a special educator in 1991 and is passionate about working towards a life of dignity and independence for neurodiverse individuals. She believes that all people should have access to the good things in life and that the world needs all kinds of minds. So that is neurodivergence for you. Welcome, Aparna. Please do join us. We are also delighted to have Nina Wag, a good friend, the founder trustee of ALAP, Assisted Living for Autistic Persons, which is a residential facility dedicated to individuals with autism. The parent of a person with special needs, Nina is also a poet, a playwright, and a Hindi language translator. She has been a passionate advocate for autism for over 17 years. Her contributions include representing the autism community during the drafting of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act and leading the development of the autism section on the National Trust's website. Nina has supported numerous organizations in establishing systems and in fostering growth. In addition to her advocacy, she actively writes and speaks on topics related to parenting and assisted living across various platforms. Welcome, Nina, to join us on stage. The third member of this panel is Chitra Paul. She's the parent of a non-speaking young adult with autism who is passionate about self-advocacy for his community, both in India and internationally. As a strong proponent of communication inclusion, Chitra firmly upholds the principle, nothing about us without us. She currently serves as program specialist, special projects at the Keystone Institute, India. She's also the co-founder and director of All Inclusive Foundation, a not-for-profit organization committed to creating inclusive spaces and empowering marginalized individuals across disability, gender diversity, and socioeconomic status by adapting environments and supporting the people around them. The foundation is rooted in the belief that lived experiences must be centered and included at all levels of decision-making and design. Chitra is also the co-editor of Talking Fingers, Voices of Indian Non-Speaking Autistics, a powerful collection amplifying the voices of non-speaking individuals from across the country. And I may add, if you have not read this collection, please do so. Do yourself a favor and get yourself a copy. Welcome, Chitra. Please join us. And the fourth and final member of today's panel is our very own Mary Barua, the founder director of Autism. She really needs no introduction. Nevertheless, I will attempt one. Mary is an activist who pioneered the autism movement in India and across South Asia and helped catalyze legislative changes that include autism. Mary trains parents and professionals and advocates for the rights of persons with autism as equal citizens of the country. She serves on various committees and advisory boards. Mary is an Ashoka Fellow and has received national and international recognition for her work. She is a parent to Neeraj, her son with autism. Well, I think the common thing about this amazing panel, Mary, to join, is the fact that all these panelists, these amazing, powerful women have translated their personal issues into public commitments and most importantly are wedded to the idea of dignity, of equal citizenship and equal rights. So it is my great pleasure and privilege today to moderate this discussion. So let's go ahead. So are we good to go, ladies? Yeah. Ready, audience, for a very exciting and interesting and engaging discussion?
Yes.
Do keep your questions ready, and we will take them up after the discussion is done. So I think one of the most important questions that immediately comes to mind is, after us, what kind of a life do we imagine for our young people? And I think Chitra would be probably well suited to talk about that.
Thank you Shubhangi, and thank you for this opportunity. So I've noted down a few points and I may end up reading a little and sharing a little. So first and foremost, I just want to make it very clear, I sit here primarily as an ally for individuals like my son, Tarun, who's a non-speaking autistic, much more than as a caregiver. And why I do this is because I believe very strongly that the person with the lived experience should have the first and the last point in things to do with their lives. And hence, I now shift into just being an ally who's here to amplify the voices of people like my son. So the thought that will come is, as a caregiver, don't I have anything envisioned? Definitely. I do have things that I have envisioned for my son. What I would love for my son, and that is to live a life of quality. Enjoy every moment, be safe, everything like that. And experience all the good things of life. But then let me just stop here and go back in life. Maybe 20 years back, when I was growing up, 20, 30 years back, when I was growing up. And I remember that, not just me, everybody sitting here, when we were growing up, we all had visions for what we wanted in life, right? And some of us, what did we do? We pushed through and made those visions come alive for ourselves. But there were also some of us who couldn't do it, who had to abandon some of their visions, but some of their dreams they kept alive, maybe for a later date. And some of us who just couldn't make any of them come true. But one common thread that we can see when we go through all three groups of people is that any opportunity when whatever we envisioned, we could control and we could do, we had some control, that always left us feeling very happy and good with ourselves, right? Anything that we had control over, whether it ended in a good result or a bad result, the point was that we had control over what we did. And that is something I'm sure all of us will agree on. So that is what I want to put out there, that it's the same thing for all our young people. They too have dreams, and maybe all of those dreams may not come true. But having that control, that autonomy, that ability to choose what they want to is very, very important. And that is something we all need to remember. And so the reason I bring this up is to highlight how important a role autonomy and choice plays in every person's life, in ensuring that the person gets to live a life of quality. Now, coming back to people like my son and others like him, those with disabilities, autistic individuals, people with intellectual disabilities, how much autonomy do they have on their own lives? This autonomy becomes a moot point when talking about the quality of life that such a person experiences. And so I may envision everything under the sun for my son. But what I need to focus on is life and see how much of it can I support him to make true. And this is true not just for my son, for every individual. And as caregivers and allies, I think that should be our focus. And when we do that, our envisioning can become part of theirs, or maybe that will have to be dropped and we mold our visions so that they match up to what they have envisioned. And end of the day, it's his life or their life, and they need to have control. So here what I would like to do is, I had a small conversation with my son about this whole thing before I came here, and I want to share what he had to say about this. So what he came across was that he's happy, he stays with us, his parents, he's a single child, and he's quite happy with the way things are now. But he also wants to move out at some point. He's very clear about that. But right now he's happy. And and what he says is, I like living with my parents. I don't want to move out now. But at some point when I feel that need, that I need more freedom, I would definitely like to move out. And he says that I would look to live separately. And then I asked him, how would you like that place to be where you would move out? And he said, I enjoy most at home being with my good family. So I would like to be in a single home-like setting only. And what do you mean by a single home-like setting? You do stay only in a home with people you love and who care greatly for you. And who would these people be? These could be family, these could be your well-wishers, these could be your friends. And so then I also asked, what would you do? You need a lot of help to go through your day. So he was very clear that I would mostly need a paid person to support me, because I know the family and friends may not be able to provide all the support I need. And I did ask him, what about a big residential kind of setup? Because we have a lot of them. And he was very categorical, I don't want to go into such a setup. And the reason he says is, I'm just quoting him here, not bringing me happiness because have to not live my life the way I think is best for me and how I want to live my life. So essentially what he's trying to convey is, if he moves in, he's scared that he would have to live life on somebody else's terms, which he's not comfortable doing. My happiness only revolves around my family and having people who care for me and who I care for me around me. Like not make me to do things I have no interest in. And what do you think are the things you feel are best for you? Possibly having opportunity to learn new things, get knowledge. So he loves to learn. So that is up there for him. Protect my present lifestyle. So what he's doing now, he would like it to continue in whatever way. Live with people only known to me. And how do you want to live life? Look to live like everyone around. Little work, little play, above all, enjoy every moment. And then I also went on to ask him, suppose you had to move into an assisted living setup, how would you want that place to be like? And he said, kind of like my home. Have only feeling of freedom to do the things I would like to do, but also get the feeling of responsibility because it is my home. Have the freedom to do the work I want to do, follow the routine I want to follow, dress according to my wishes, enjoy food I like, find enjoyable opportunities my way. So this is in brief what he has shared, and I thought that was very pertinent that I share what he had to say, because end of the day, it's his life. And yes, as a mother, I do fear for his safety, that he doesn't get further rejected or isn't hurt by somebody, by those he interacts with. But at the end of the day, I'm also only a mere human being. I do not control his destiny. And that is something I need to internalize. Nor mine. I don't control my destiny as well. I can only help him to take risks while I'm around, so that when he falls, I'm there to pick him up. And through that, he develops strategies to survive and help build resilience. I can try to create the relationships of support around him. So there are people who care for him and who he cares for around him long after we are gone. And as he says clearly, he wants to be in the driver's seat of his life journey, every aspect. And as a mother, then it is only right I respect his decision. So the beginning should be from what the individual wants for their life, and then working to see how best it can be achieved. We may not reach 100%. We will not reach. And that is true for all of us here. None of us, whatever we dreamed, we've managed to achieve all that, right? That is reality. But whatever we can support. And Tarun knows he will need support, and that family alone may not be able to meet it, and he will need support, but for what and how is his decision to make. That is what I as a mother need to respect. To remember that he is no longer an extension of me or his dad, but a full, knowledgeable adult individual in his own right. So that's it.
Wow, I think so many issues, which you have flagged, Chitra, so beautifully. Most importantly, the notion of autonomy, of self-determination, of respect. And as Indian parents, sometimes it's very difficult to have this kind of attitude even to our non-disabled children, wherein we try to control what they study, what they eat, who they marry, what their careers will be. And when it comes to a person with disability, all the more reason for us to step back and think about our own controlling behavior and really respect the autonomy and agency of our adult. And what you said, what Tarun said so beautifully, and a huge shout out to Tarun, we wish he were here, but his voice, which you have represented so, comprehensively and beautifully over here, is something that I think all of us will take home with us. To carry this particular issue forward, what do we envisage for our young adults after we are gone? Nina, would you like to say something?
No, it's okay. Chitra, your story is every mother's story here. Not only mothers, but every father also. Yes, we need to have the individual autonomy. Unfortunately, we live in a very transactional world. What is it that you have got that I need, and what is it that I can give you that you need? And there is the dichotomy, because we are trying to navigate our world through this transactional, maze that we have all, caught into. And we are also aware of our children's vulnerability. How do we strike the balance? Where do we meet? What is that common ground? These are the kind of forums where we need to sort of poke ourselves and each other to make the way forward. But having said that, in today's world, where we are right now, even for them to exercise their own free will, we need to give them a framework. And that is why we are here together, to find out and give out the best possible solution from our sensibilities. While it is very good as a parent, it's a very generic term when we say we want to see them happy, we want them to be happy. That's a very, bear me, it's an overrated statement. Because there are many emotions, there are many colors, there are many colors in the indigo, there are many colors of the emotions as well. And as a human being, we all have to go through it. So we cannot be all the time in an extreme idealistic situation cannot be always just saying that we want them to be happy. In order for them to be happy, we have to make them go through the rigmaroles of the day-to-day life. How to navigate themselves, how to articulate their needs, even if they are non-verbal. There are thousands way of communication. Our mothers did not have to talk to us to make us freeze wherever we were doing some shit. Correct? One eyebrow raised and we were like frozen. Okay, set away hum log. You know, that is communication. That is effective communication. But we as a parents, we are so stuck with verbalization of our expressions that we often miss the finer things in life. So if we want to create and give that framework to Chitra and her son, we need to start looking at those finer things. Not only look ourselves, but demand from the people. If we want to give him that freedom of choice, then we will have to work towards creating larger support system. Many parents come to me, but he's a single child. We don't have any family. We don't interact with cousins. He never goes. The neighbors don't know about us. So that is where we are ourselves becoming the hindrance for them to express their free will. So in order for them to express their free will and transact, we not only have to just tell them to be happy, but in spite of all the adversities, be happy. So, and extend the support systems, whether they're neighbors, your friends, your fellow parents, start extending your support to them. So your child, our children, will also feel that yes, it is okay to be not okay once in a while, because there are other people who will take care of them at that time.
No, thanks, Neena, for that very, very important intervention. There is a need for us to engage in building solidarities and support systems outside the immediate family. Because as we know, family sizes are shrinking, siblings go abroad, siblings will move on. Then what happens, right? So there is a need to have this kind of a community created, which will help ourselves also, because remember, we are all aging. As our adults grow up, simultaneously we also are aging. And at this point of time, who better than to speak to a sibling? So Aparna, would you like to weigh in on this question?
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much. And I really think that listening to Tarun's insights through you, Chitra, it almost is something that we should use as a blueprint. You know, the voices that we hear, the voices of the actual people that we're doing this for, that have, possibly kept us up at night worrying about this, what after me, what after us. We've got our answers, we just don't listen enough. And I think if we try to, and we make a decision to let these voices guide what we do, we're probably firstly going to prevent a lot of mistakes that we make along the way. And secondly, it's just going to make our work so much easier if we do this journey together. So I wanted to say a couple of things before I start though. Firstly, it's a real pleasure to be here talking to all of you, being part of this very, very, very important conversation. And I want to thank Action for Autism for this opportunity, and especially Mary and Nidhi for reaching out and calling me here. I also wanted to share that I've known Mary since I was about 14 years old, because Neeraj and my sister went to the same school, and here we are together many, many years later, still together, and Neeraj and Rooney have brought us together, so it's really wonderful to be here. Project Arunima is based in Dehradun in Uttarakhand, and this is a starting point that was quite natural for me because my family, including my sister Arunima, who we fondly call Rooney, we were all living there. And then 3 of us, in all these years, Meena, Mary, and I, we've set up assisted living centers. And I say, Tarun gives us a blueprint, right, for this. I want to speak about one of the most vital aspects of such initiatives, and that is the team, the staff, and the support system. Because Neena just mentioned the fact that a lot of parents worry about the fact that we don't have a network. We don't have other people who are going to be friends. We have a single child. So these are possibly the people who are going to be around in our family members' lives way after us. And it's very important to invest in this group and to build a group. If I use my sister as the standard, right? Who are the people, what are the kinds of people I want in her life? And that is probably, my training manual for the staff that we have at Arunima. How do we build a staff and support systems that create a space that is safe, that is respectful, and truly nurturing for each individual? Like I said, I wear many, many hats over here. I may be the founder and director of an organization, but first and foremost and forever, I will be a sister and I will be a family member of a person who used to keep me up nights wondering, like many people in this audience, what after me? Many people have now, with setups like Ananda, Alab, Arunima, and many, many more, many people are sort of working towards this idea. But for me, the question still exists as an individual, what after me? If I've set up an organization like Arunima, what happens when I'm no longer around? And a lot of parents ask me that point blank, when you popped, what's going to happen to Arunima? And this is where the staff plays such an important role. This is the team that is going to carry it forward. Like most startups, we started with just a few key staff. And one of the biggest mistakes we made was hiring special educators. And thinking that special educators, wait, I have to say this before everyone hates me. Thinking that special educators were the right people to work with adults with special needs, right? Now, I myself, I'm a special educator, so I'm not othering you all, right? But this is something that we've got to think about. We learned the hard way that we needed people to walk with and not lead the people who live at Arunima. And I think you'll understand why the whole special educator thing was mostly a mistake. No, not all the time. I mean, there were some amazing exceptions as well. The people who work at Arunima, they have to be willing to understand and own our core philosophy. Our goal is based on the principle of valuing, of normalization, to be able to live a typical life. When I say normalization, I don't mean making people normal, because who's normal, right? But to be able to live a typical life, to bring the good things of life to all people, and especially to those people who are devalued because of a common characteristic, and in this case, neurodivergence. The staff have to understand and respect the principles that need to be followed to bring the good things of life to people. And Tarun spoke about all of them, right? Things like choosing where you live, who you live with, having friends of your own choosing, the opportunities to do what you want to do. Again, something he said loud and clear. Having a valued role and being able to contribute, to have a home that feels like one's own, to be heard, to be respected, possibly to have a job. These are the good things of life. And the staff have to learn that we can never assume that all individuals are the same. So one of the things that I was very sure of when I started Arunima, and especially I really thank my sister for this, because she is one person who is not going to be told what to do. She will make sure that you understand what she wants, and if you don't understand it, you're in for a hard time, right? And it's taken me many, many, many years to respect that, but I respect it and own it completely today. And I think, like Shubhangi said in the beginning, that it's not just for our family members. They've been guides for us, and then we bring this to other people as well. Our job, and the staff have to understand this, is to be cognizant of what makes a person unique. If someone needs something, we have to find a way to make it happen. We cannot use an excuse and say, oh, but then we have so many people that we're working with, we're not going to be able to individualize things for everybody, who has the funds? Then don't do it. If you're not going to be able to do it, don't do it. You don't have the right to control anybody's life. The typical thought about devalued people, again with people who are neurodivergent is, isko kya zarurat hai? Roti, kapda aur makaan to de rahe hain hum log, right? It's a very coarse example, but these are mindsets that have to change. And I have seen this mindset, and like I said, it took Rooney many years to drum some sense into me as well, right? I assumed I knew what was best for her. But these are mindsets, very educated people say things like, oh, you work with people who are suffering with autism, right? That is a clear mindset. The moment you use the word suffering, you say, hey, let's just give them what is basically needed. Let's tell them what to do. Let's look after them. Let's help them, right? So we've got to get rid of this mindset. And so many people who come and work with us, that is, our first job is really to work on mindsets. Now, it's very difficult to convince special educators that we don't have all the answers, that a 50-year-old doesn't need to sit and sort colors or do tabletop activities. So humiliating, right? So it's easier to work with people who come with a more open mind. And so who are these staff and what makes them unique? I think the same competence that we presume of the adults who live at Arunima is what we expect of the staff as well. These are people who may range from school pass-outs to college graduates and some special educators as well. We're constantly discussing higher order ideas with them. Discussions about ethics, about choices, about respect, about personal time management. Opportunities for learning have to abound. Many people who have worked at Arunima say that they feel like they've evolved as human beings. And this makes them better for the friends that we work with. It may sound cliched, but the idea of being a lifelong learner is deeply valued at Arunima. As I was preparing for this conversation with you all, I spoke with a couple of the staff members and I asked them what they valued about being at Arunima, about staying at Arunima, what makes them stay at Arunima. And they said, personal growth, these are some of the things. Personal growth including improvement in my communication, decision making, judgment skills, leadership skills, learning how to be a good leader, a good salary, a family environment, a systematic and organized workplace. Now, why are all these things so important? It's not just about making the person better, but it's about making the person better for the people that we're working with. That's the whole idea. And to be able to be like that and to be able to evolve, we need robust support systems that will engender the best results, that will give people a framework to work in and improve. So, a lot of the support systems that we provide are born from our experiences. What do you do in an emergency? Recently we had, what is that? The drill, when the alarm goes off, in case, we had to have a blackout drill. So we practice those blackout drills. How do you prepare for a doctor's visit? How do you interact respectfully with an anxious parent? How do you advocate for a friend? The people at Arunima, the people who live at Arunima, we refer to them as friends. How do you record information in a professional manner? How do you use systematic instruction to improve people's skills? The staff will be their best if they are treated with respect and they realize that we have high expectations of them. So we work closely with the HR department, we create useful feedback systems, identify growth opportunities, build leadership skills, and keep life dynamic. The staff at Arunima, like I said, that big question that Aparna has today and Mary has and Meena would have, apart from being a parent like Chitra or Shubhangi, the staff are going to be our greatest resource. Their presence makes assisted living truly living, and our investment in them will reap benefits for the people that we love. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very, very deep and, honest reflection. And I think you've also highlighted some of the mistakes or some of the common misconceptions and stereotypes about persons with disabilities, adults with autism that we make. Roti kapda makan hai aur kya chahiye? Bahut kuch chahiye. Bahut kuch chahiye. Or also very, very importantly, the notion of this culture of expertise, that special educators, that people who are trained in dealing with children are adequate to also talk about or deal with the needs and the decisions of adults. So I think you've really given an amazing kind of an overview of your ideas as well as the work that you do in your organization, and thank you so much for that. I'll now request Mary to share her insights on the question that we raised. What kind of a life do we envisage for our young adults after we are no longer there?
So one is, of course, I want to say that I was blown by the things that Tarun has said. Excuse me. He talks about control, autonomy, etc. And the most important, one of the reasons why I think what you said was so very, very important is that Tarun is non-speaking. And there is a general perception that if the child does not speak, isko to kuch aata nahi hai, bolta nahi to kya samajhta hai. This is, non-thinker. So this is a perception that is not just from parents. It's a perception the vast majority of professionals have. That if they are not speaking, they really have nothing to say, they don't understand anything, you can do what you please with them. And the reality is that it is not just people who are non-speaking, even fluent speakers, neurodivergent fluent speakers, often face a huge challenge in expressing what they are actually feeling, wanting, experiencing. And the presumption is that if this is what they are saying, that's what it is. Or if they can't say, they don't know. There is no effort to truly listen to a human being, which is not about listening to sounds, but listening to their behaviors, listening to their expressions, listening to what they do, all of which tells us so much. And to be honest, it's a growth that has happened with us also. Action for Autism, when we started with the whole thing of different and proud of it, and we were non-judgmental and accepting and all of that. We did not use any kind of punishment procedures, none of that. However, we really did not have an understanding of neurodiversity. And that is what has really enriched our understanding in the last years. And that helps us understand that, whether an individual is speaking or not speaking, it does not matter. There are, multiple ways of listening to what a person needs or wants. And that is really very, very important because it's like, I remember going to one assisted living and all the residents were sitting around with drums and they were just sitting there, and then the founder was dancing in the middle with the mothers, and I tried to get some of the young people to get up and dance also. And I was told that no, let them sit. But the young people were wanting to get up and dance. They were not saying it, but it was very evident from their faces that they would like to get up and do something and not just sit there with the drum which they weren't interested in playing. So this thing of listening, that is something that really does not happen. And the other thing that I think is really powerful in what Chitra said is about Tarun clearly saying that, yes, I do want to stay separately from you at one time. And that really speaks a lot to the parenting that has happened. Really, because very often our parenting is such, we make our children utterly dependent. We do not help them create a distance as they're getting older, right? Which happens with, that kind of not allowing the distancing to happen, like Shubhangi said, actually happens with our neurotypical children as well. In India, we tend to hold on to our children all the time without giving them the opportunity to, think, take their own decisions and fly themselves. So it happens as much or even more with people who are neurodivergent, the feeling that they can't do it, so we must take care of them or we must do this for them. So it often happens that we've had, parents in their 70s bring their, children who are 40s, who the parents are not able to separate themselves from the child. And very often these are children who their parents presume can't separate themselves because that's what the children have learned. But once they've moved away, the children have blossomed because they've realized I can have a life of my own. And this is something that as parents we often prevent. And again, this is not like, I'm trying to run down parents because this is true of all parents. Even the professionals who are sitting here, they do it to their children as well, right? So this is the other important, powerful thing to learn, especially when my child is neurodivergent, especially if my child has a disability, to help them grow their wings, to help them, give them the possibility of realizing that I have my own personality, I have my own wishes, I have my own wants. There are actually neurodivergent people who are really smart, really capable, who will actually say, I'm no good. I'm not, I'm hopeless, I'm a loser, because that is what they've always heard. from the environment, from their parents, from the professionals who supported them, to give them the power and the ability to know that I am my own person. That is so very important. And I know that sometimes it's difficult when you say this to parents, because parents still want, I mean, yesterday we had an experience with a parent who just could not understand this, who wanted that there should be somebody in the child's room 24 hours supporting them. And we said, but this is an adult. He has to have the space to do his own things. He should not have somebody constantly standing on his head, making sure he doesn't do something that will harm him. So that constant fear and desire to overwhelm the individual with support, that is something we will have to learn to step back from. And of course, parents will have the difficulty, and it is yesterday the parent who had this difficulty, once it was explained, it took a long time. That individual eventually got it, that yes, I get it, okay. But it takes time, and we have to be patient and help them get that, because we live in a society that is all about holding on and not letting go, about overprotecting, over-parenting, over everything. So I thought these were some of the most important things. And one final word I want to say to add to what Aparna was talking about professionals. I really didn't ask any of the people who are working with us, and like with all of us, we have one or two special educators, but the rest are just people we thought would be able to learn and grow with us. One of the things that when we ask them sometimes when we are doing our discussions and all that, so how does it feel to be here? What have you learned? And they say to be happy. And I think that's the best thing that we can get. And it really aligns with our philosophy, which is all about learning to be happy.
Hurrah for that. Yes, indeed. I think learning to be happy is a great, great skill, a great talent, which we need to learn and imbibe so that we can be happy and people around us can be happy too. Before we continue with this discussion, I'd just like to make a quick announcement. Around 12 to 12:30, a hooter might ring. It's an internal drill for the Lalit team. We don't need to do anything at that time. In case needed, you can just inform people around you that they need to just disregard it, right? So it's not for us. I think so many issues have cropped up in this very, very short time span that we have had so far. And I think I really, to pick up from what Mary said about this urge to overprotect or to let go, this kind of dilemma between protection and freedom, what we call the dignity of risk very often, when we think our young people are just too helpless or too vulnerable to be exposed to any kind of risk, which in fact can be as damaging as anything else. But I would like to now ask Nina something very, very important, and that's something that's pretty much on everybody's mind, about the importance of standards and frameworks in place in assisted learning facilities, which will ensure safety and at the same time ensure dignity. I'm sure, Nina, you have been thinking about this a lot and working on this a lot, so do please share your thoughts.
So I will divide this question or topic like you raised in 3 parts. So let's take an overview. All of our So I would like to address this in 3 parts. So I think me and Aparna are contemporary. Mary is our senior. But if you go back 20-25 years back, all of us here, our children or our siblings were, we were just recently handed the diagnosis of this autism thingy, and were told that your son will require lifelong assistance, or your daughter will require lifelong assistance. And it did not even dawn on us as to what does that mean, lifelong assistance. Okay, because we were too focused on the immediate. So in the first stages, we were like running from pillar to post, looking for miracles, looking for the quacks, the doctors, the therapists and all that. First 10 years were, I think in everybody's life, was like a blur. कुछ भी लाल मिर्ची नींबू से लेके this therapy, that therapy, those well-heeled were even went to UK and US to see, oh, that doctor his name is bigger than yours, probably is a better therapist and all that. So we've been through that. Then the adolescent hit us, literally. And then COVID hit us, very bad. So you will be seeing a huge curve which has come. Suddenly, assisted living or what after us has really become the top of the question in our minds, what after us. And I have been obsessed, with this question since my child became, he entered adolescence, and one day, the turning point was, I was driving the car and he hit me with his leg during his meltdown, whatever the trigger was, and he hit me on my nose. I was driving and my nose started bleeding and I almost swerved in the middle of the road and was about to be hit by a truck or a bus. I just got mad and I drove it, parked the car on one side and gave a tight chap to my son. And I was yelling at him, you bring the worst in me. And then I suddenly, like Ekta Kapoor moment, I had this, that scene going again and again, that why is it that he is bringing the worst out? That probably that worst is in me, that's why he's taking it out. And that was like a turning point in my life. If I, as a primary caregiver in the family, because I had left my job, and many of, the young mothers, the professionals, never thought that they would get into this. And most of these initiatives are being parent-driven. Had to leave their jobs, their aspiration, whatever they had thought about themselves, some unfulfilled dreams and whatever this thing. So I thought that if I am as a primary caregiver burning out, what will happen to my child when I drop dead? Out of stress, if nothing else. So that's how I started thinking about what after us and started going around, seeing, what all facilities are there. That time they were social media was just starting. I don't think we had these WhatsApp groups and Facebook was not yet discovered, and through email, I think LinkedIn was there. And I discovered Aparna and I approached her and I went and, saw her beautiful setup in a tiny little hamlet near Missouri. So, to cut to today, what has happened is that the current scenario in India is that parent communities are waking up, and because those 20 years back our children were in their early stages, early intervention, have now grown up. They are in their 20s, they are in 16, they are in 30s, and now we thinking, and especially COVID has made us realize that we are not immortal. हम अमृत चख के नहीं आए. हमको अपने लिए अपने बारे में भी और अपने बच्चों के बारे में भी सोचना है. So what is the current scenario? The various systems, various solutions are mushrooming all over, but they're not yet equally distributed. Most in Punjab there is hardly any maximum good work, which is always happens, starts from south. Of course, we have Ananda and we have Arunima, and Alap is a newbie in front of all of them. Alap was just formed in 2018. So what do we need? Are there any government facilities? No. Last year there was a news article where Supreme Court had asked the government that all these under the JJ Act you have these group homes under which you can only have children till 17 or 18 years of age. Where are they going? What are the facilities that you have? And in these houses, the very, very marginalized, either the abandoned or the orphaned children or special needs ones are there. So government's hands are full right now to look after them. So us, the middle classes, or wherever we want to place ourselves in a socio-economical segment, we are left to fend for ourselves. That is my realization and my observation. So we have to, while the government is catching up, while we are trying to, 2 decades have pass just to make them aware of what autism is, or what what neurodiversity means, what all does it entail, what all areas and segments we will need to, talk about inclusion, whether it's workplace, common places, or residential facilities or solutions. So this is the time to do resource sharing. Think out of the box. Whatever skills you have, can you bring it together to address the framework that she is asking? Is to start from that. Let's say Chitra one. Now Chitra is asking her son, what does he want? And he has stated it very clearly, this is how he wants to see. He doesn't want to go into an institutional kind of a setup. He doesn't want to go in a hostel. He would ideally like to live in an apartment just like his parents. So what can be the framework? How and who she approaches? Are there any answers right now? No. Where does she go? Probably she will have to either start with herself, or she will have to ask us, or go to local solution, think of whatever the framework is available there. This is the situation right now. And I don't know, maybe many of you know or not, to address this thing, or to in search of all these kind of questions, created a forum on Facebook called Forum for Assisted Living Solutions, where I started collating whatever information I could get, and started making a list of such facilities. And I have categorically left those, old traditional charitable institutes, because the world is changing. We want the same kind of lifestyle for our children that we have. Just because they have a label, we don't want a charity ka thappa on them. They also need to, and besides the same kind of environment that they have been brought up so far. So how do we get there? So this forum is where all the people who are doing such work started also sharing their stories. And this is how the communities are being built. And whatever the other communities are doing, we are reaching out to them. Why don't you share your story? Because that gives empowerment. Information is empowerment. When somebody in our community or the larger community is doing something, that gives us sort of a roadmap, or sort of a framework to start with. Then there is this debate, because of whatever the current scenario is, that what kind of a setup would you like? Would you want the parents to also live there, or do you want your child to be not living in a hostel but in a small cluster homes? Or do you feel that no, they will not be able to sustain? For sustainability, you feel comfortable in a larger number where there are 50, 60 people, or you want to also live there? Whatever you are thinking, it is happening right now. So either you start visiting yourself there, or you will get an idea as to, okay, what is the gap here? How is it that we can fill it? Or how we can increase our stakeholder base so that we get more and more people, because as parents we feel very vulnerable, that we are hardly able to manage our own day-to-day thing. We are navigating through these financial challenges. We have to work for ourselves, our retirement, but not only that, we have to keep working even after our demise for this child who's always probably need a financial assistance or day-to-day assistance. So it's a huge ask. And right now there is no one agency sitting and giving that answer. So that is the reality. Okay. So supposing Aparna has talked about the staff, and Chitra has said about what all she wants in a quality setup. So if you are ready to go in any setup, what is it that you should be looking for? Because that will create framework, or that should be what should be, that whether they have a clear admission policies, is there transparency, the willingness for both parties to work together, accountability on both the sides. Parenting can never be surrogated, please be very clear about that. When you step out looking for something for your child, it has to be kind of an extension of your support system. It cannot be an alternative to you. And that is where the things go wrong. That is where too much of onus comes on the assisted living facilities, and the accountability then is not given, and there are a lot of hiccups happen. Invest in human resource, like Aparna said. It is very important because these are the people, we are just so obsessed with मेरे बच्चे का क्या, मेरे बच्चे का क्या, मेरे बच्चे का क्या, लेकिन जो आपके बच्चे को देख रहा है, उसका क्या, उसकी ग्रोथ का क्या, उसकी नर्चरिंग का क्या, उसकी एस्पिरेशंस क्या, is he motivated enough, how is he invested, how are we engaging with them. In Alap, one day I made all the staff sit and say, how do you, I made an interaction with the mothers and the staff. And I told all the mothers, if you have to leave a page about your child after you are not there, what all would you like the caregivers to know? So we all had a session, everybody, I mean, it was a very tear-jerking, emotional session. But that was the building the bridges. Because mothers had even the smallest of the details, that in the changing weather, my son gets panty rashes. Would you please take care of that? Macro mein mat jaiye, life is more into the micro details. When we invest in these things, the framework will never go wrong. It's the intent which needs to be set in the right place from both the parties. Having said that, because the sector is in a nascent stage, it is working. We cannot be just complaining. There is nothing out there, because people like Mary, Aparna and many other parents. In Chennai, 50 parents have come together. They bought 6 acres of land. They are living there. They have the hostels. They have cafeteria. That's their dream. I have a group home. All the parents live within 15 kilometers. We are like a big joint family, because that is what I always wanted to have. That is how so your conviction, your clarity will work and translate that into thing. But the road ahead is very bright, because the innate community sense that our country has, our country society has, you will not see it. It's unparalleled everywhere. So we have to encash or sort of invest in that strength of our society. Having said that, recently I traveled North Zone, South Zone, East, West, North, and I interacted and appealed to all the service providers who are into this field to come together to form an association so that we can create standards, parameters, quality, so that we give a shape of this sector in a nice, healthy manner. Because what will happen is, one bad practice in one organization will suddenly reflect on everybody. And trust is very fragile in our parent community. We are full of fear. So in order to address those fear, we have to translate, our fears into something tangible. How can we address those fears? So this community is called ALFOC, Assisted Living Facility Organizations Consortium. We have taken a benchmark, the National Trust Garunda scheme. We took it as a minimum baseline, and all of us contributed as to what should be minimum standard of living. Minimum. So we have created a framework. A lot of work is happening. So it is reassuring. It's a beginning of the journey, not, we're not stuck.
Thank you so much, Nina, for that. I think this is something probably which is music to the ears of many of us who are probably just in many ways failing around looking for facilities, looking for some kind of support structures. And I think the very important thing that you brought out is कि कितनी variety है इन तरह के support organizations में, इन तरह के futures में. So Mary, I just would like you to briefly interject. Maybe could you tell us a little bit more about what kinds of assisted living facilities have you come across in your long journey as a parent and an activist?
Okay, so just to add to what Nina was saying, there are actually many already running, and actually I think Maharashtra takes the lead, not the South, because we've been visiting assisted living for the last 25 years back. And there were many in Maharashtra that we had seen. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of Aadhar, Sadhana, God, Sangopita, a whole bunch of them that have been running for many, many years for middle and, middle classes. And of course, the government has been running very unsuccessfully, should say, Asha Kiran being a, case in point. But there's that's not even, that's something that, the disability sector has been trying to kind of change the systems there, but we've not been very successful. But there are a whole lot running. Some of them are running, been running okay. We saw them, they were not bad at all, and most of them were affordable. And I think that's something we have to keep in mind, because, and all of us who are here on the stage, we are running services that are more on the expensive end, and there has to be services for those whose means are more modest, and we've seen a whole bunch of those that are running, and I think those are very, very needed. And the other thing that I have seen is I've seen a lot of residences across the world actually, and in at least 12 different countries, and many of them, especially and mostly in the West, has been ones which are in town with maybe 6 residents, but the thing is that those were all financed and funded by the state. We worked out, I know that, I think 30 years back, we worked out along with another 5 parents, friends of mine, we worked out, if we set up an apartment for our children to live, etc., etc. And at that time, it was working out to 35 lakhs per person, the kind of money I didn't have. The others had, but I didn't have it. So it was kind of out of the question, it was very expensive. And even now, running something like that is going to be hugely expensive because there's not going to be any state support. So therefore, the ones that I do remember, there was one in Ireland, which had 36 residents, but over a huge plot of land, and they lived in homes. There were groups, right? And that is really the one that we are following at Ananda. And in Denmark, I had seen a residence where there were residence where there were 12 residents living there, and they had their own lives, independence, etc. And we said, okay, this is what we could think of because it makes it more financially viable, because it has to be sustainable. Whatever we do has to be sustainable. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart after some time, right? So, I mean, like Nina said that, the National Trust has the systems, but that really needs a lot of work on it, and we are not really following that because some of it we find a little bit restrictive. But I think one thing that I have to say is that when we take a resident in, which I'm sure people are doing, there has to be an assessment of their strengths, their likes, their abilities, their challenges. And it has to be really, really granular so that we understand the individual in really great depth and detail so that you can provide the support and also know that when the person, after you prepare, and that's something we do, we tell the parents how to support the person in making the transition. We didn't when we initially started, when we did a test run and all that, but we realized that is something that has to be done. It's respectful, so that the person is prepared, is aware. So it's not that, chalo tumko wahan chhod ke aa rahe hain because your behavior is not good. This is what happens very often with families, right? And that's not the way to do it because it's extremely disrespectful. And eventually the person will be happy, but can you imagine the trauma that they come in with? Right? And it's terrible. So preparing the individual for the transition well in advance, showing them pictures, every person is different. They need different kind of preparation. So if necessary, showing them pictures of the people who live there, the kind of place it will be, make a trip to see the place, all that kind of stuff. So there has to be a granular assessment. There has to be preparation for that person to make this huge transition. And we know how challenging transition is for our people, right? Transition is one huge business for them. So this is something that we have to really, really work on. And the other thing that I have to say is that when the individual has moved in, the onus has to be on the assisted living. I don't think it can be a shared onus because the family is not going to be there, right? The family, and for us, we know a lot of the families are not even in Delhi. They're from outside. They come from different places. They check us out. They make a few visits, and they put their individual in, their child, sibling, nephew. And the thing is that the onus has to be on us. We have to take the onus. And of course, we want to keep the parents involved, right? But we also know the parents are not going to be there forever, or the sibling is not going to be there forever. Ultimately, it will be us. So the onus has to be on us. And that we have to accept that right from the beginning. And I think in all of that, it's very important to create an atmosphere of trust, of openness. For the parents to know, I can just drop in and visit any day I want, right? If I do that, and parents can do that, they know that, okay, I can walk in and it's okay with them, right? And that is very, very important because that creates trust. And when we create trust, when parents feel, okay, I can just walk in and see the place and visit my child and spend some time with him, etc., then that feeling of trust comes and the willingness to be supportive. And of course, parents will occasionally have difficulties and stuff like that. But I think creating that trust is critically important. Because once we do that, things become much easier, not just for the organization, but also for the person that we are supporting.
Thank you so much for that. And just to carry the conversation forward to somebody who is both a caregiver of a person, of a neurodiverse person, as well as a professional, what do you have to say, Aparna, about this very delicate balance between the role of the parent and the role of the professional in the context of assisted living?
So, there are many different models, but I think what I feel my instinct tells me is that the parents at this point of time, their role doesn't end with the moving of someone into an assisted living center. I often say to parents that if someone is 18 and above and is expressing that they want to be more independent, firstly we should respect that. But there are many things that we are not going to be able to figure out or understand about an individual that you have actually lived with. And so at least in the first year and a half, we find that we involve the parents very, very deeply. If, for example, just recently we had someone who came to Arunima and he does speak, but it's very difficult to understand the things that he says. And he was saying a word that we couldn't understand. And we immediately messaged the mother and she said, okay, when he says this, it means this. So I say to parents, please do this. If it has been expressed that someone wants to live independently, please do it well in your lifetime, when you're well able to support the organization and the person and your own family member. Don't wait till the day that you have to move someone out because you can't look after them, or that person has to move out because you're no more. Right? That is the most cruel thing to do to any individual. So in my opinion, the parents have a huge, huge role to play. And then this whole independence. And I mean, very often we see things only through the eyes of disability. When my kids went to college, right, their caregivers, as such, to whatever extent they needed caregiving, was the college and the staff over there and the management over there. Now, we were in touch, as an anxious mother, maybe I did reach out to the college. I remember, give some insights to her professors, to my daughter's professors, and said, she usually feels like this, and when she does this, it means this. And my daughter is a neurotypical individual. So I think, maybe the extent of involvement will be a little more when it's a person who is neurodivergent, but treat it like a very normal transition. And respect the parents' role in their lives, the parents who've been there forever. Now, does that mean that parents should live on campus with their children? As a family member, I say no, because I'm restrictive to my sister. My sister today, after 14 years of living at Arunima, is doing so much more with her life than she could have done if I had been hovering over her, right? I have been a part of her life, I continue to be a part of her life, but now when I visit her apartment and I spend the night at her apartment, I only go as her sister. I only go as someone who wants to spend time with her. I only go as someone who she's invited to her apartment. So my role has changed over the years as well. So we need to be open to that as well. It's not going to be the same on day one and in the 14th year. So transition naturally. That's what I would say.
So you asked the double role that we have to play as a mother as well as the service providers to other children. So if anybody here is thinking about opening such facilities, think very hard, because आपको दूसरे बच्चों को भी उतना ही मदर या फादर बनना पड़ेगा जितना आप अपने बच्चे को। और if that strength you have, only then you get into this business of taking care of others' children. Because as Maharshi Ramana said, there are no others, and that's a deep philosophy. And हम लोगों की पूरी जिंदगी निकल जाएगी इस चीज़ को ही खाली ये 2 लाइन को अपने में जज्ब करने में. So, you know, there have been many moments where I had to deliberately distance myself from, because the minute I go there, even if they're 28 or 30, they say mama, mama, mama. And they become like a big baby and they need special attention. So like Aparna says, I also keep away and let him navigate his life even within this framework. And then I have a very small system. There are only 10 kids. All the parents live nearby. How are we moving as a society? We cannot address this topic, take it out from the larger perspective. How we are growing as a collective also. Because many mothers come to me, I have a 6-year-old daughter, I have a 6-year-old child, I want to put him in an assisted living. Why? Why in such a young age? Oh, I have a 3-year-old daughter and I cannot handle it. Hello, that's not the right reason to look for assisted living. Assisted livings are not dump yards of your failures. I cannot be more blunt about that. Be very clear as to why you are seeking assisted support. You're a single mother, your husband has abandoned you, you're living in a city where there are no facilities, you are old, you have an only child, you have no other family support. These are the right reasons. And your role, if you have a sibling, if you have other child, wherever he may go, why did I get into this thing? Yes, I have 2 children. Yes, do I expect my other son to look after me? Yes. But in all practical sense, today he is working in Mumbai. My child is here. He is interning. Maybe 10 years line he will get more busy. Maybe he'll have to travel. वो उसको गले में लटका के तो नहीं घूम सकेगा. And what about my own other son's dignity? Why should he feel that he is a liability, he has to be dragged everywhere? So yes, you need to have independent ecosystems. But your responsibility as a lab person, I will never let you go off that this is not your responsibility. You as a parent has to teach your other child as well that he may or she may not be there, but in some way or other he will or she will have to be invested in this ecosystem. Only then these ecosystems will work. Otherwise very soon you will start seeing many of the systems getting closed. Like I said, these are your extensions. You cannot surrogate your parenting to any system. The more we increase our stakeholders base, not just the service providers and the parents. In our cases, we are the parents/service providers. When I say increase your stakeholders base, why not talk to your neighbors? Why can't they contribute? We are always talking about funding from government. We're talking about CSR from corporates. There are so many high net worth individuals. Everybody, forget that. Even गरीब को भी देने को आना चाहिए. Everybody should become vegan. We have as a duty, as service providers, as parents, as community who are seeking support, that we also have to inculcate that habit of becoming somebody's support. Then we will all sail easy. That's what I have to say.
Can I just add, please, small point. When Nina mentioned about children being in assisted living, this is something that we really need to work against. There are assisted living that invite children as young as 6 years old to move in and stay there. And this is something that the world has moved away from. There was a time, I mean, even when my son was diagnosed 42 years ago, I was told that, put him somewhere and forget about him. So the thing is that that's happening even now, right? So parents are often being told, dump them somewhere. And so, the thing is, this is something that the rest of the world has moved away from. At one time, it used to happen in other countries as well, and they've realized that children should not be living in institutions, because then it's like an institution. Because if you have a child living in a place like this, which is cut off from, the community by 30 miles, what life is the child getting? No matter what disability the child has a right to go to school, the child has a right to an education. And there are places that are actually encouraging little children to move in. And that is something that we really, really need to move against, because that is so terribly inappropriate, and it is actually abuse, because when you're doing that. And families don't know, because we have so many young families who come in who've been told that isko bhul kar, have another child and forget about this child. So then they think, theek hai, let me put him into a place like this. So those of us who are running services, we have to be mindful that we do not, perpetuate this kind of a place. And a lot of them put them in not because they don't have the resources, because that's what they've been given to understand, that this is what you should do. This child is useless, iske baare bhul jao, right? And that cannot be perpetuated, and that's very, very important.
Thank you for this very important intervention, Mary, and I think it brings it really back squarely to the way we see disability, the way we value or devalue persons with disabilities. And I'd like to turn the conversation back to Chitra to reflect on precisely this. And you have a son who is non-speaking, and the common understanding of a non-speaking, as Nina rightly said, is probably somebody who doesn't think. So perhaps we need to talk a little bit about the personhood of our individuals with autism, and your thoughts on it would be very welcome.
Thank you, Shubhangi. So I just want to reiterate what Nina and Mary said about, no, we cannot have children being put in. Children need to be at home with their parents. I know there are struggles that parents face also, but you need to figure out a way to find resources, and not just your own family. You need to start thinking about your neighbors, and that effort has to come from the parent. And here I would like to just share a small experience that I had. So when COVID happened, and this is just to highlight the importance of building that support system beyond your family. And when COVID had just hit us, I had a sudden health emergency, and I had to go in for a surgery. And we were in Bangalore, no family around. And we didn't know what to do. What do we do? Because my son was, I think it's 5 years back, so he was around 16 years old. And we didn't know what do we do. And at that point, the only thing that saved us was this support system. I had friends who openly said, you just drop him off at my place and you go in and come back and I will take care of him, like to the extent of if I need to give him a bath, I'm ready to do that. And that is when it struck me that it is so important to move out of our comfort zones of family, or even here I will just go one step ahead of not just relying on the community of parents like us. Go beyond that, because this is something which has always driven me, and I just made a note when Aparna also said about the special educate. There are enough good people out there. It depends on how we approach them. If we are going to respect the other person and we are going to understand that they may be in the same place that we were when as parents we were handed a diagnosis and told that life has just stopped for you, I'm sure we'll be able to understand their, like the state of mind that they are in when they meet a child like yours. So if we just give them that space, and we help them to understand our children, and we role model. So this is something again that Tarun keeps telling when he conveys to parents. You are the role model that society is looking up to understand how to interact with this person. So there is a lot of onus on us, and we need to live up to that and push beyond family and build that support system, because support systems always come in handy. And there will be enough and more people to do that. And coming back to, sorry, I'm going to ask you to repeat the question. Shubhangi, I beg, I just got carried away because this was on my mind. Yeah.
I think I've also gotten pretty much carried away by your answer. So I just basically reflecting upon what the other speakers had said about the way in which disability is seen as worthlessness, as something which is, really adding no value to society. How do we then work to protect the personhood of our youngsters and to also convey this message to society?
Yeah. So I think I can pick off from where I left, that we have to be the role models. We have to respect our individuals. And one way we can go about doing that is, like Meena spoke about setting those frameworks. The first thing we need to do is have people with lived experiences on the teams to set up those frameworks. Here we are just parents, we are just professionals who are talking. We are deciding things. Can we have them on board as part of the committees to set up these frameworks? Because there is an insight that they bring. Maybe it could be somebody who's very independent, can speak, like they hold jobs, everything, but still they will bring in a perspective which we will never get. Because, yeah, so we need to have those people on board, and when they are on board, the message we are sending out to the world is also that we are giving them respect, so we expect others also to respect them. So I think that is one thing, one way that we can get started as family members, as professionals, to ensure that the world stops looking at disability as, oh, curse. Yeah, as a curse or as a dead end, or yeah, I still remember, it reminds me of the report that we got when Tarun was diagnosed. We were told he's not going to make much of his life. But yeah, 17 years down the line, I don't think he has to prove that to anybody. He has. So it's just how we present the individuals, how we interact with them. Again, I go back to what Tarun said. You are the role model, so you have the responsibility in building that image, and we need to start by including them in every conversation we have. So I think I will just rest my case.
Aparna wants to interject.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Chitra is saying right now. Chitra's son is an adult today. All our children are adults. There are so many times when I wish I could start life all over again and undo some of the mistakes that I have made as a sister. And very often I see parents coming to Arunima today and with their 20, 25-year-old saying, "Auntie ko namaste bolo, aise mat baitho, haath niche karo, nahi aise mat karo, pair seedha karo." And I just say to them, stop, please stop. That is so disrespectful. How are we going to get our children to be on those forums, to have a voice, if we haven't even let them move without our guidance, right? So I think for those people sitting here who have younger children, this is actually, it's not going to happen miraculously. A non-speaking person is not going to become a deep thinker if he or she is not allowed to think. It's not something that's going to happen miraculously, it's not going to happen overnight. So definitely children need to stay at home. We cannot do this for you, it's the parents who are going to be able to do this, and we have to start respecting, stop these damaging practices that a lot of schools tell him to look into your eyes. Dekh ke baat karo, look at me when you talk, haath niche karo, jump mat karo. We have to just stop doing these things. Then we're going to have those deep thinkers like Tarun, right?
Mary.
I just wanted to add one more thing. Talking about respect for the individual. and making mistakes. I know that as a parent, I've made tons of mistakes with my son. And then I started at a time when people didn't even know what autism was. So I've done a lot of things that I realized later was so wrong and so terrible. And I know that, I think about 10 years back, I sat, and then I do it even now sometimes. I sat him down and I talked about some of the things that I'd done, and I apologized to him. I said, I did this, but Mama didn't know what to do, and Mama did a lot of wrong things, and I'm so sorry I did all of that. And I said, sometimes you also did a few things, but I did a lot more things that were not nice. And I cannot tell you the beatific smile, and my son is minimally speaking, right? The beatific smile that came on his face, and he looked at me like this and right. And I think that is so important, and that is something we are teaching our support people to also do. That sometimes when you make a mistake, apologize to the person, to say that this was a mistake. Galti, galat ho gayi hai humse. That is important. What I did to my son is also what we have to teach our team members to do to the people they are supporting, because they also make mistakes, right? We're human, we all make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, so long as we acknowledge it and we apologize for the mistakes that we had made.
Thank you so much.
So I just want to just add on to what Mary said. This is something even I have done with Tarun. Like, I know I have made mistakes and I have sat down and talked, and even now, like, if I make a mistake, I tell him. Like, there are times when I am overwhelmed and I just burst. My fuse just blows. And then I later tell him, like, Amma made a mistake. I'm very sorry. I shouldn't have done this. But yeah, that happened. And it always helps your relationship grow. And then they also understand that we are human beings. We are not super women or super men or anything, that we will just stay calm and regulated and not make mistakes. So that's a very important thing, to acknowledge the mistakes. And here again, as Mary said, that is your role modeling to others, that yeah, you can make mistakes, but acknowledge, and that when you acknowledge, you are also respecting that individual.
Vangi, I very recently saw in one of the reels that little girl, instead of saying neurotypical, she said neurodifficult. So that's the only, we were talking about them versus us. I have two sons. I always, to sum it up, one is special need, one is more need. That is the only difference.
No, I think just to add to what Chitra said, saying sorry, which is such an important thing for us to do, to have these frank discussions with our adults. And I may quickly add that our neurodivergent adults are probably far more accepting of our mistakes and ready to forgive us than our neurotypical children. So I think we are coming towards the wrap up of this session. We'll just have one more round to go. And then I'm sure we've given you a lot of food for thought to actually frame your questions and to raise them. So I just want to, on the basis of all that we've been hearing so far, one of the things that repeatedly struck me is the kind of importance that we give to parents to be everything. So the parent has to be accepting, the parent has to understand, the parent has to train, the parent has to prepare. So isn't this a huge burden on parents? And how then can this parental burden also be socially distributed? How is it that we actually can make life easier for parents? Because it's a huge role, it's a huge laundry list of responsibilities. Chitra, would you like to take that?
That's a very difficult question to answer. But what I would, what I tell parents, especially I talk to a lot of parents, is like, don't try to push yourself into yes, society plays all these, like, you're a special mom and all that, but don't. Try to stay as human as possible, and it's okay to make mistakes and struggle with life and be open and vocal. So we perhaps what we could do, even as people sitting here, is we could discourage these kind of conversations to get started with, so that, because what we do is what the outer world also picks up. If we are going to say that like autism is a special thing, or the mother is a special, and we give a lot of importance to the mother and how the mother has to be everything and everybody and everywhere, then that is what the world picks up on. So again, it's about let's start at home, within ourselves. Let's not make mothers and fathers into these big icons of resilience or everything. Let's just paint pictures of normal, regular people being put in a situation which can be sometimes have a lot of struggles, but there are also joys, and there's a lot of evolution that happens to us. So let's begin within ourselves to try to paint a different picture of ourselves as caregivers, as professionals, and remove that element of we are doing something so I don't know, so pure or so holy, and we immediately gain access into heaven or something like that. Let's try to paint a different picture. Let's just begin with ourselves. That is something that I would say.
Very important, Chitra. And I'd just like to ask Mary, as a way of wrapping up this discussion, would you like to reflect a little bit on the role of parents and professionals? You've spoken about it, but perhaps elaborate more on how this responsibility sharing can really be thought of in the most productive way.
I think I would like to talk about this from the perspective of all the things that we were discussing. How do we ensure something that parents keep asking about? The care and protection, safety and protection, right? And if I were to ask, to throw out a question like, when we say safety and protection in a residential home, safety and protection against what? If I could hear 4 or 5, just loudly if somebody could say. From what?
Ma'am, sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse, anything else?
Accidents, physical accidents.
Physical accidents.
Apathy.
Apathy. Right, thank you. And? Hygiene. So what we are thinking about, what we are talking about is so important, because physical abuse and sexual harm is what people immediately think of. That's the one thing parents come and talk about. But what we often don't is the apathy and hygiene which comes from verbal abuse, abuse of neglect, right? Abuse when they do not have meaningful engagement, daily meaningful engagement, when there is not meaningful engagement with the community, right? When you're living there, stuck there, nowhere to go because this is my life now that my parents can't manage me, this is what I have to do. This is all different, these are all different kinds of abuse. There is also the other thing is abuse of autonomy. So often with our people, if we give them an instruction and they're not doing it, we are physically constantly moving them, right? We are physically prompting them immediately without giving them the time they need to process and act on what they've been said to them. So their bodily autonomy is not protected very often. Forget about other kinds of autonomy. And then of course, the abuse of medication, right? That is such a big one that happens in residences. So how do we ensure that these things do not happen? So one of the most important, I would say, is something that Aparna talked about, professionals. And what do we do about those professionals? We ensure before the professionals that there is a neurodivergent affirming environment, that all the professionals are trained in neurodivergent affirming practices. That is the most important one that I can think of, so that they understand that these are people whose minds work differently, they have different communication preferences, they have different sensory needs. If we do not understand that, we see everything as behavior. That is what happens. Everything for us is behavior. This whole business, and we did it actually at one time, constantly talk about challenging behaviors. There are no challenging behaviors. They are behaviors of protest against what the environment is doing to me, and how the environment is communicating with me. That is what is. These are behaviors of protest. These are not challenging behaviors. And the trauma that they undergo, that is what these are expressions of. And we have to understand that. And the other thing is no physical restraint. It's so common to see there's physical restraint, there is isolation, and there is forcing people to do things, pulling them, dragging them. It is so common in residences, right? And the other thing that I want to, we have 10 minutes, huh? Okay, the other thing that is very important while we ensure we give this training to the staff is that the staff, they are not serfs, they are team members. In many places, they are like serfs. And that cannot happen. That cannot lead to safety. Of course it is happening, but that cannot lead to safety and protection. It cannot be if I'm not treated. See, one of the things that I keep saying is that, when you look at the hierarchy, who's at the bottom of the hierarchy? Our people. So when we create a hierarchy, so I'm on top, but the people who are supporting them are here, my kids are really at the bottom. And how I treat them will percolate down to them. So if I treat them like serfs, if they don't have any off time, they don't have any leave, how are they going to function and provide quality care? That is not going to happen, whether it is a government place or whether it is a residence that we are running or any kind of residence. It cannot really ensure there is safety and protection. The other thing is, of course, person-centered care. Of course, it's not possible to have everything individualized. There has to be individualization. However, in the things that they want to wear, what they want to do, we have a day's routine, like we just do in a family, right? But even in a family, if a person is not wanting to do something one day, we don't force them. And the same has to be true in our assisted living. There has to be respect, there has to be dignity for the individual. And we are not forcing them to do things. We have to keep their personal wants, desires in mind, like what do I want to wear today? So I don't always decide. If the person does not usually choose, I can keep 3 things and say, okay, now do you want to pick one of these? So that they eventually learn that yes, I can also pick and choose. And if you don't give that opportunity, and many of the adults who come to us haven't had the opportunity. So, the thing is that we have to give them a place of growth. It's not a place I'm just there. A place where they learn and they continue to learn and grow. And they learn to, even if they haven't been able to exercise their autonomy earlier, they learn with us to exercise their autonomy. That is something that we want to do. And privacy and me time. So, if I'm going into their room, even if it is a shared room, I cannot just walk into their room. Just like I wouldn't want people to walk into my room without knocking. So I knock and I ask and I then walk in. So these simple things, and in the time I have, I'm trying to rush through everything. And the other thing, something that, Nina touched on a little bit, having external reviews, right? It's very important. What happens is that when we are running a service and we're doing it for a long time, we keep making mistakes and we stop seeing them. We just stop seeing them. It's like, if in my house there's a place that hasn't been cleaned and after a few days it's not clean, I don't really notice it. It's not clean, right? So the same thing happens when you're running a residence. If you do not look at it with fresh eyes, you will not notice the mistakes you make, right? At Action for Autism, I know at one time we used to have a lot of these volunteers who used to come from overseas. And one of the best things that they did when they left was to give us, many of them would give us a list of their observations. And very often they told us what are the things that we are not doing right. And that is why we need to have some kind of oversight. I know that Keystone is providing that kind of service currently. There are not too many places, but there are a few and that we need to start thinking of involving. But in that matter of oversight, one of the people we have are the parents. While I said the onus is on us, it doesn't mean that you cut off the parents. And when parents come and visit, they will tell us things. Very often they will be critical. And we have to be comfortable about that. Sometimes they might be unreasonable, and that's okay. Because that parent has left their child with us and gone. They will be concerned. They will keep asking things. They will keep, worrying about things. If they see one thing done differently from what it was being done, they think, acha kya ho raha hai? And that's natural. We cannot get confrontational with our parents. We have to accept that they will come up and say these things. And in fact, when parents tell us things, even if there is an unreasonableness, 60%, there's 40% of truth in it. And we have to be able to see that. Because when we see that, we can bring about change. If we get into a confrontational mode with our parents, we'll never be able to change and make things better for us. And the other thing, the accountability. Recently there has been, a number of things that have happened in different, residences. And there is zero accountability. Zero accountability. It's happened, it's all the parents' fault. Oh, the parent didn't do this, the parent didn't do that. That is why I said the onus is on us. We cannot say, after the individual has been with us for a year, to say, oh, I didn't know about this. That is not accountability. There has to be accountability on when something happens. And I'm saying this knowing something can happen with us, and things have happened with us. And we will have to take the onus for that and be accountable for what has happened. We cannot say that, oh, it is not, and that is what happens. And the other thing that I want to touch on briefly is that, all of us were parents. Before we started services, when we were receiving services, we made demands. We said, I want this. Why is that not? We did that. We did it ourselves. But now when we step over to the other side, now we say, why are the parents making these demands? Now I've turned into a professional. Now I'm no longer a parent. And the thing is that residences, some are run as businesses by people who've said it very openly, they are running a business, which is fine, why not? And many of them are run by parents like us because we had a need, right? So neither group, whether I'm a parent, whether I'm a parent professional, whether I'm somebody who's just doing it as a business, I'm not doing a favor to anybody. I cannot say that, oh, it's so hard to run a center like this. How can the parents keep saying this? If I were a businessman and I gave you a shoddy product, would I say, be happy with that? You have no idea how hard it is to run a business. But that is what residences are doing. And it's appalling to hear people running residences saying, oh, people have no idea how hard it is to run a residence. Then why are you running it? Don't run it if it is so hard. But if you've taken the responsibility, and we know how hard it is, we struggle. It's not easy at all. But if I've taken the onus, I cannot now say, oh, you be happy with whatever I'm doing, because you don't know how hard it is. So accountability is very, very important, right? And the thing is that when things are not going okay, if that is the time when people tell me this is something you want to change, that is when learning happens. That is, feedback is, at Action for Autism, feedback, it's our goal. We hold on to feedback. We just had a discussion around that. Because we give each other feedback, we listen to feedback from parents, because that is what helps us be better. And it is so important to listen and change, because that helps the whole organization be better. And that is absolutely critical in order to ensure that there is safety and protection for people who may not be able to always speak for themselves. And finally, I think one of the most important things is, we can have all the policies in place, we can have all the, things about how a residence should be set up and what should be the processes, what are the SOPs. This whole thing of respect and dignity, it has to be a culture. It has to be there in the DNA. If it is not there in the DNA, if it is not there in the culture, no amount of policies is going to help. I still remember one of the residences I attended in the US. I went to see, I'll finish, that I went to see, and it was, it's run by a very reputable place, and I've seen lots of lovely places and I've seen average places. So this is a place, again, it has all the systems in place, everything in place, but, and nobody's being abused, so to speak, being hit, or verbal abuse, any of that, or apathy or anything. But there is a kind of apathy, because the people who are working there, it's like an othering. Like, we are the ones and we are taking care of you. And we've done taking care of you, then we still chat and, you take care, we chat now. So there is so much of othering without abuse in the accepted sense of the term. And that is what we have to keep in mind. Because othering will happen unless we bring this whole thing of dignity and respect into the culture. So there is respect and dignity of the support people, so that they learn how to give respect and dignity to the people they are supporting. Otherwise, we will end up being a place where we are very nice, but we do other the individuals who are there. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, so before we wrap up, I think the other panelists, it would be great if you could just reflect and respond very quickly to the observations made by Mary.
Yeah, very rightly brought it to the surface about what is ailing, what is the negative side of the current sector or whatever it is. We were talking about safety. The first thing which becomes is, if you as a parent are afraid to ask or take responsibility, that means you are in a wrong setup. That should be the first parameter. Like in Alap, we tell the staff, because Aparna has spoken about investing majorly into the staff, because they are our support system, they are going to be there after us also. In Alap, we have one small thing, jab thak jao to hat jao. Because even staff can have their own meltdowns. They are also entitled to have their outbursts. They are entitled to have their own unreasonable outbursts. They are human like us. As mothers, we have been unreasonable. So we have to give that reasonable accommodations to each other and tell them, you take a break, somebody else will. Rather than forcing them to continue working and outperforming, because that is one of the reasons why the abuses happen. Because we don't give respite to the caregivers. So if we take that into the primary thing, into the framework, second thing is escalation. Accidents will happen. We are talking about entire life. Death will also happen. We are talking about entire life beyond us. Everything will be taken into account. What cannot be accepted is sheer negligence for anything. If as a parent, as a service provider, you cannot have open dialogues, and if you don't have the systems where there is a proper escalation meter, if something happened, why it happened, was the parent informed, was the caregiver immediate, was there a framework where the caregiver can immediately inform to his superior and that guy to his own superiors? If those systems are not in place, and if possible, everything should have a written, every organization should have a written manual, so that if I drop that tomorrow, she drops this tomorrow. People are not in lurch, okay, what is the manual for running Arunima or Alap? Or Ananda for that matter. So we will have to move towards those. So that is.
Thank you. Very, very important points that. Aparna?
I think Mary's covered pretty much everything, but I just, to reinforce what she said, we have made mistakes and we will continue to make mistakes because we're human and we're not perfect. I think the most dangerous organization, the most dangerous leader, the most dangerous staff is the person who is not willing to listen if you bring it up. So if you as a parent or you as an administrator come across someone who makes a mistake, fine, that's normal, but is not willing to learn from that mistake, is not willing to take advice, that's a red flag. Just that one bit to add.
Great point.
So I just, Mary and Aparna have said kind of what I wanted to just highlight. And I just want to emphasize again, we all spoke about all the different things we're worried about when we go. But what Mugdha said, apathy, I think that is the most dangerous thing. And that is something which is invisibilized. we're fine, okay. They're safe, that's fine. But that is the most dangerous and most scary thing actually, that we should be worried about. Because when apathy sets in, the other things follow and we don't realize it. So what I would like to just leave on is, as parents, we need to be able to ask questions. And if you're scared of asking, don't leave your child or individual there, because that is not the right place. That is not how it should be. And I go back to what Tarun said. It has to be a home. And in a home, what do? We ask each other questions. We have the freedom to ask questions. So if that is not there, it's not a home for your child in whichever capacity. And if somebody is not open to listening, go away. That's not the right place. I'll just stop it there.
Very well said. And a home is a place where we ask questions. So we open the floor now to the audience.
I just wanted to add a last thing, to what you said, and I think Nina said also earlier, that parents should not place their children in a residence where things are happening. But we have to understand that sometimes parents have no option. There are parents who know that their child is being drugged without medical advice, and others are being drugged without medical advice, right? And most of the residents are drugged. But despite knowing that, absolutely have no option, because that parent has to go out and earn a living for their child's future. And so, so all of us have to keep in mind that sometimes parents do not have the option to decide where I'm going to place my child. And that's the tragedy of the whole thing. And I think, just to end, I want to say that this is a work in progress. We are all making mistakes. We will all continue to make mistakes. But if we are willing to learn from our mistakes, is when we can make this better. And if we don't do that, then things will never change. So we have to be open to knowing that we are making mistakes and learning from those. And of course, listening to people with lived experiences. That's something that we really have to include in everything that we do. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I hand over the floor now to questions. And I request those who have questions to please come up to the mic and ask them. And very important little piece of gyan, if you will. Keep your questions as questions, please, not as long comments. And try to ask them within 30 seconds so that we have the opportunity to open the floor to a wider number of people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this, and I rushed in to ask the question first because I have so many. Mary, you said this is a work in progress, and all of you also mentioned proof of concepts are still awaited. My most important question is to all of you who are running, what are the most viable financial models you have explored for assisted living communities? Once the parents are gone, how does the finances work? And transitions have to be a parent's, something that they are also doing emotionally and financially. So like you said, that people have to prepare their children. I think as a caregiver, I need to prepare myself financially for that transition. And also once I'm gone, what are the financial models that we are working on? That's number one. And number two, I'll just give and then I'll hand it over to others, which is that, assisted living models often face the dilemma of whether to group individuals by similar neurodiversity profiles or create inclusive environments with a mix of needs and abilities, because one size doesn't fit all. What's your zamini hakikat, in the sense that you're running a place. How difficult or easy is it to keep people with various neurodiversities together? And if tomorrow I'm looking to start one, or I'm looking to take my child into a place, what should I be looking for in terms of people who are going to be with him? Should they be the same neurodiversity independence level, or should they be people where, you know, by demand you need a structure or framework to be put in a place to give them that kind of life?
So I will answer the latter part of your question, and then I'll give it to Aparna to answer the earlier one. So in terms of should there be a mix, you know, we started off with people, all the initial individuals we got were people with very high support needs. So then when somebody came who was a little more independent, the family saw, we took them around, let them see everything, and they said, but you know, ये तो बहुत severe है, इसके साथ कैसे रहेंगे? So I asked her that, you know, आपके घर में आपका parents है, in-laws है? So he said, हाँ है, तो वो लोग कुछ, they are, you know, physical disabilities है कुछ. So he said, हाँ. So I said, you know, so some of them were people who needed a lot of support and stuff like that. So I said, do you prevent your son from mixing with them? Do you keep them separate? So she said, no. So I said, in a home, you have people of all kinds of abilities, right? Why would it matter to you whether for us, it does not matter what level of support an individual needs or how independent they are, right? It is how you interact with each one. It is what kind of agency you give them, right? It is what kind of autonomy you give them. And she thought about it, and then she agreed to put her son with us. And what has happened is that that young man has actually, from not accepting that he's autistic, accepts now that yes, I too am autistic, and is so much more understanding. He started off by not understanding why the rest were doing the things they were doing, and has turned into a more accepting human being. Something that you find with some of the ones who are kind of independent but not very independent. They have been told by families who unke saath to nahi mix karna hai, which they have internalized. So that got addressed. And we believe very strongly in having a mix of people, and we don't have any difficulties with that. Because our programs are individualized to every person. So it does not matter whether, and we have a home, the way we run it, we've got a home with 14 people living there, and it's like a regular home. And people with different abilities, different needs, all functioning, you know, together, doing things together, and it's worked out very well with us. So I don't think you need to, and we have been approached by many who are far more independent, by the way. And we know that there will be people joining us who are far more independent. We'll have some who will have very high support needs, more joining us, and more who will be far more independent. And they're all comfortable about coming and staying, because it's the environment that determines how they feel about the place. And I think one of the things we often forget, and which this family realized later on, the support people are neurotypical, and they are like, you know, family members. So, you know, there are all kinds of people there. It's not that, you know, they've been dumped into a corner, and they're a part of the community. They're going out for a walk, for a trek in the community every day. The village people are coming in. So they're a part of the entire community. So it's not that, you know, I'm with this. It's not like an institution where you're stuck with a whole bunch of people. So that we found that it works very well for us. And I think the financial one I'll give to Aparna.
People who know me, they laugh because they find out that I'm talking about financial stuff. But see, the thing is, firstly, we learn along the way. I would say standards need to be really high. If we start like that, if we say that, hey, we're just going to do the bare minimum because we don't have money, that's not a great place to start in, because it's never going to get better if we start with that kind of attitude. So, but the idea is it's got to be sustained after us as well. So we started with a hybrid model where the balance was initially much more on fundraising and less on fees. It's sort of becoming more fees, less fundraising right now, which also puts a lot of burden on the families. And so I think the idea eventually is that you've got to figure out how to become more and more self-sustaining. Fundraising is not easily sustainable. It's very, very difficult for smaller groups. And so how, what kind of services can we increase? What kind of services can we provide that bring us more income? And without putting undue pressure on parents who've got other things to look after as well. And we're just going to talk about financial planning. So this is the idea. Now, as a special educator, as the founder director, as a sibling, I'm not money savvy. And so we've got to be able to work in collaboration with other people who can help us plan better as well, right? So that's sort of answering part of your question. So what is the best financial model? I think the best one would be one that is self-sustaining.
For the parent as well.
Okay, and now when we come to the parents, look, the fact of the matter is that we have to plan beyond ourselves. When the parents are not around. So if I'm talking as someone from Arunima's side, right? We've got everything happening, we've got whatever financial model we've got at the moment. What happens if a parent is no longer around, our fees is what it is, a person's needs are what they are, and there's no more income coming in? We're going to be in trouble. What are the horrible choices that we have? Either put the burden of that expense on the other parents or on fundraising, or have to ask the other person to leave. Both of these are not good choices that we want to be in a position to make. So, luckily for us, there are some really good financial planners available today. I know of Mr. Solanki and what's his organization called? Mr. Solanki, I forget, Jitendra Solanki, and then Chitra Iyer, who runs MFA in Mumbai. And so what they do is that they help you to predict what your child's financial needs are today, and therefore what will they be 10 years or 15 years from now when you are no longer able to earn. How are you going to ensure that that money is available, right? So, but this is an exercise that people must do, and the earlier they start, the better it is, because for me today, so I started this exercise only in 2022 for my sister who is 10 years younger than me, right? I have less earning time left to be able to build up that huge corpus that is going to be needed to be able to generate interest to sustain her lifestyle, right? So the earlier you start, and these guys are the experts, we're not the experts. So get in touch with the financial planner and plan your expenses for your child and for your own. So what they do is they help you plan your child's finances, and they also say, what are you going to need to sustain your life? How are you going to divide your investments or whatever you do in order to make sure that neither one of you suffers, right? You can't suddenly leave all your money to your child and have nothing left for yourself, right? And you're not going to be able to depend on other people. So this is a really great exercise to do as soon as possible.
Quickly wanted to add one thing, as far as the finances are concerned, I think one of the most important things, an expense that one has, is the team members, and team members have to be really paid well. There is a saying that goes, if you give peanuts, you get monkeys. It's a little bit like that. So if we do not pay our team members well, if they do not feel that we are happy with what we are getting, it's going to be a challenge. And that is a huge challenge. Because when you pay them well, your budget just shoots up. And to figure out how to do that is really what Aparna was talking about.
Can we have the next question, please?
Hi, congratulations on the great manifesto, great study videos for me. My question is a bit more related to policy because that's the area I work in. I noticed something interesting related to GST on independent living and coaching centers for people with autism. That section looked at that only if you have a severe disability with 80% plus autism is that your GST is exempt in that sense, because that's what the national does actually say that the GST law that is complicated with that. But obviously the cost of living is something obviously below 80% is also very high. In fact, personally, I find this percentage-wise grading a bit unnecessary. So has there been any effort from all of you to impact against GST because of that?
I think the thing is that all of us run not-for-profits, so then the GST thing does not apply. And so I don't know what the ones who are running it as a for-profit enterprise, how they are doing it. So for us it doesn't apply, so we don't really know. Yeah. But that would be a worthwhile question to put to those who, there are some that are running as for-profit enterprises. So it might be worthwhile figuring out what they are doing about this.
Thank you for the question. Next.
Hi, thanks a lot. It was lovely listening to all of you. I just wanted to ask, hearing about so many centers and luckily we'll explore, are there opportunities for parents and kids to come and either volunteer and experience it, and hopefully this can be a vocation or a profession for some of the children with neurodivergent abilities. So is there an opportunity like that? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. I will be in contact.
Hi, very insightful discussion. I'm a father of a 17-year-old autistic boy, and I am thinking of putting him in an assisted living environment. But something which always keeps me worried about, what is the kind of continuity or succession planning you guys have after you guys are not around, God forbid, but that's a reality. So there has to be an element of succession planning, because my son is 17 and he has to have a long life. So what kind of succession planning you guys have?
Who would like to take it?
Yeah, so I'm sure people have their own succession plans, but this is a very, very important question, because you can't have the organization running only as long as the founder is around, right? What happens after that? And when I was speaking initially, what's your name? Ashin. So Ashin, when I was speaking initially, I was talking about the team, right? The team is very, very crucial in this, because the team is what carries the philosophy forward, right? But there has to be someone who's going to lead that team as well. You also have a trust. For example, we have a trust, we have a board of directors. It is very important. This is the community that I am building as the founder director, of people who are going to take Arunima forward when I'm no longer around. So bringing younger people onto my board, bringing younger people onto my trust, having staff who are about 20 years younger than me at least, working and absorbing our philosophy and believing in it so strongly that they can say it even when I'm not around, right? It's going to be very hard, I think, to advertise for someone to take over after me. It has to be someone, hopefully, who's going to come up through the system. So this is my succession plan. And now, all of our meetings, all of our discussions with the trust and the board are all on strategic planning and succession planning. Because now we've got to start stepping back, put SOPs in place, put roles in place, put an organizational structure in place, which is aimed at sustainability. So that's what I'm planning.
So all the organizations are different in the way we do it. So, for us, Action for Autism, the assisted living that we have is just one of the many programs that we run. And so we have already, second rung, and now we are working on creating a third rung. So that, so it's the organization that will be like, the sustainability comes from the organization, which already has had these things in place. But of course, it's not the end. We are still working on having a third rung that will be taking over when the second rung is no longer there, etc. So it's not that the whole piece is dependent on me or anybody else. It's dependent on, multiple people that are there and then others coming up.
See, that's why when she was asking me about the framework, is that I wanted to give a framework, the overview of where we stand today, only because of these questions I was anticipating. That what after you? Because we are creating those layers. If I see that you are seeking right now kind of a setup where you will be set. So that means you are in a nursery class and we have done 10th or 12th. We are just now graduating. So the long and short of it is, it's a work in progress, to be very brutally honest. And all these things, Aparna as an individual, as a sibling, me as a parent individually, we were standing on ground zero 10 years back, 5 years back. We have come this far that we are providing that long-term solutions, or we are willing to provide them. So it has been a work in progress. It is organically coming around, and all these questions will also be answered. But as of now, if any organization says that 100% they have these succession models, we can only say it with a pinch of salt. But yes, the right directions have already been taken, and in future it will become more consolidated. That's the nutshell.
If I can quickly intervene, there's a long list of question askers rather, and I would request that if a particular question has been asked, उसको please आप repeat न करें, क्योंकि काफी repetition भी आ जाएगा. तो एकदम संक्षिप्त में पूछिए, और panelists भी थोड़ा संक्षिप्त में जवाब दे दीजिए.
And just add to that, succession planning, financial sustainability is also very important. So just adding that.
Ma'am, I want to ask that, like, what's the success in life shows in someone who's neurodivergent, adult and living in an assisted living facility?
What's the
Success in life shows for someone who is a neurodivergent adult and living in an assisted living facility?
So it depends, I'm just jumping in with an answer. It depends on the quality of life that is provided to an individual. So just like the rest of us, if we have a good quality life, if we get many opportunities for learning, if we get the support that we need, we are going to probably be successful. And that is exactly how it's going to be for a neurodivergent individual.
Thank you, ma'am.
And there are many good examples of neurodivergent individuals living in assisted living facilities across the world.
नमस्कार मैडम, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर को डिसेबिलिटी सेक्टर के लिए और पर्टिकुलरली हेल्थ सेक्टर के लिए उसके बारे में लेटेस्ट अपडेट आपके पास क्या है? और पार्ट 2 ये है कि मैं जैसे पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग से रिटायर हुआ हूँ, तो वी आर गेटिंग वेरी गुड सैलरी व्हेन वी आर इन सर्विस. आफ्टर रिटायरमेंट वी आर गेटिंग वेरी meager pension from EPFO because I am getting more than 1 lakh when I was working. But after retirement, I am getting just 2,579 only. And सबसे हैरानी वाली बात जो होगी, जो शायद आपको भी नहीं मालूम होगी, कि हम दोनों के मरने के बाद हमारे बच्चे को he will get just 600 rupees as a family pension. तो इसके बारे में आप कुछ करेंगे या आगे इस मामले को आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं?
So insurance, abhi there is one insurance company, I cannot recall the name. No, not Star, another one.
Bajaj Allianz.
Maybe Bajaj. No, there is one that has started a specific one for autism, but I really have no idea whether they will actually honor the claims when the time comes, because that has been the problem always. सब कोई बहुत बड़ा पहले स्टार्ट भी किया था कि वो इंश्योरेंस देंगे, but when it came to making a claim, then they don't honor the claim. So वो इंश्योरेंस, I'm sorry, I really don't think so कि उसका क्या होगा नहीं होगा, अभी तक हमारे पास प्रूफ नहीं है. And the other question you had about what is the amount to Nipun that families can get for persons with disabilities can get from the government in Delhi?
It's very, I mean, it's less than 2,000.
Less than 2,000, yeah. So you know the government is like that, बहुत कम देते हैं. मगर इंश्योरेंस में एक निरामया है जो नेशनल ट्रस्ट से देता है 1 lakh exactly. तो सिचुएशन इज वेरी डायर. सच बताओ तो सिचुएशन बहुत ही बुरा है और सरकार से भी बहुत ही कम मिलता है. द हाईएस्ट जो मिलता है कुछ सदर्न स्टेट्स में, आई थिंक तेलंगाना में 6,000 इन तेलंगाना मिलता है, और नहीं तो बाकी सब जगह में बहुत ही कम मिलता है. दिल्ली में तो इट्स लेस देन 2,000. सो ये तो सिचुएशन, इसके ऊपर बहुत काम अभी भी होना है. निपुण इज हियर, द अदर्स हियर, वी आर ऑल वर्किंग ऑन दिस.
अभी हेल्थ मिनिस्टर को जो फाइनेंस लगे और उनको हाईलाइट कीजिए. मैंने परिवार की एक मीटिंग में इसको हाईलाइट किया था मिस्टर मारू के आगे, because he was not aware about these things. He says, I will definitely highlight this. It is 2 years back, but nothing has happened.
इसी इंश्योरेंस के बारे भी IRDAI के साथ बहुत सारा काम हुआ है फ्रॉम द डिसेबिलिटी सेक्टर, वो सब चेंज करने के लिए, मगर इट्स अ बिजनेस एंड बिकॉज इट्स अ बिजनेस उन लोग को हिलाना बहुत ही मुश्किल है, बहुत ही मुश्किल है।
हमें हिलाना पड़ेगा क्योंकि हम लोग भी
नहीं, करना तो होगा, काम अभी भी है।
कुछ भी एक्शन अगर पेरेंट्स मिलके करेंगे तो डेफिनेटली वी विल डू।
So I have a question on safety, and I have a very young child on spectrum. She's 11 years old and she's the only child, and the only thought that comes to us is, though we know that we will move her to an assisted living facility, whenever we feel we cannot handle it anymore. So when you talk about safety, and especially for a girl child, in the rooms, having the CCTV, again, it's an invasion to privacy, if we put it. And, if you do not have CCTVs in place in the room, and then even if you have, staff who is sensitized, still incidents happen. So how are you, ensuring that, girl children, they are safe in these setups? That is one. Another is, it's very common for people to recommend us that get the uterus removed because these things are going to happen. So how do we educate everyone who is here that that's not the right step to take? One, and yes, there are measures that we are taking while running these facilities, and you should be fine. Because that's one fear that's there, apart from many others, that have been discussed about. So that's my question.
Okay, so I can understand that's a very, very valid fear. But I think I want to make a note of something, that sexual abuse does not happen only with girl children. Boys are equally sexually abused, right? Disabled, non-disabled. It doesn't, you could be neurotypical and also be sexually abused, right? The thing is that, the only way to prevent, we've had parents saying, why don't you have CCTV cameras in the bedrooms? And we've said we'll never do that because it's violative of their privacy. And so they say, how do you ensure that there is no abuse happening? Again, it goes back to the whole thing of trust, of having a culture of respect and dignity, right? It really goes back to that. And of course, after that, ensuring that there is no, what should I say? Ensuring that practices are followed, ensuring that there are SOPs there. All of that we will do, but what will ensure that abuse is not happening is creating a culture that is respectful, that thinks of dignity, the people who are supporting have respect and dignity and trust. That is the only thing that you can do. There's nothing you can do beyond that. And after that, there will be the dignity of risk. We will have to accept that. So my son stays in an assisted living too, and people often say that, but men don't get sexually assaulted. That's not true at all. But the other point that I want to quickly come to before I forget is this thing of having the uterus removed. When people tell you that, ask them, so when I remove the uterus, will sexual abuse not happen? Or will I not find out if she gets sexually abused? It's a recipe for disaster. You are ensuring that people know that there is no uterus and I can do what I want, right? So never do that, because forget about being a recipe for disaster. It is violative of that individual to take out their uterus without their asking them. We should not do it to any woman. Would they, if they did it to me, would I like it? So the one question that we keep saying is that ask the person, think to yourself, if somebody did that to me, would I like it? That's the question to ask. Hamare saath aisa hoga, would I like it? If I don't like it, then I don't do it with the other person. That has to be the lodestar. क्योंकि हमारे साथ करे अच्छा नहीं लगेगा तो हम उसके साथ नहीं करेंगे. It's not just about sexual abuse, it's about anything.
I think Nina wants to say a word.
See, this entire community is very fear-driven. We are operating from fear consciousness. We have to bring that shift as a collective, because we are talking about creating an ecosystem. How will that come? When we're talking about safety, we are just concentrating on the tangibles, CCTV, rules, regulations. But why do we even need that? Why don't we go beyond that? Why does the sexual abuse happen? Why any kind of apathy? Why does it happen? Till the time we do not, as a collective, focus on that, we will get entangled on just these tangible systems and all. CCTV doesn't cover anything. CCTV is not the ultimate pinnacle of safety in any kind of a setup. किसी ने आपका हाथ ऐसे प्यार से पकड़ा हुआ है या कस के गुस्से में पकड़ा है, ये सीसीटीवी कवर नहीं कर पाएगा. वो गुस्से में पकड़ ही क्यों रहा है, वो उस तरह से अब्यूज कर ही क्यों रहा है. लाइक मेरी स्टेट, अगर वो कल्चर ही नहीं वहाँ पे है. इफ आई वॉज इनिशियली आस्क्ड कि ये स्टाफ कौन से बर्तन में खाएगा, वही में जिसमें हमारे बच्चे खा रहे. अरे आप चाहते हो कि आपके बच्चों की सुसु पॉटी भी हमारे स्टाफ साफ करे, उनकी गालियां भी सहे, उनकी मार भी खा ले, लेकिन खाना वो अपने अलग कमरे में खाए. इस तरीके की मानसिकता के साथ जब हम किसी सिस्टम में जाएंगे, हम कैसे कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं. तो ये बहुत गहरी तरीके से एज अ कलेक्टिव सोचने की बात है.
I just want to add something. So we all talk about this abuse and all that, but abuse happens at home also. What do we do then? Yes, we don't put CCTV. We just focus on building trust and learning to listen. So I think the same thing, respect and trust and understanding that the people supporting our individuals are human beings and they are kind of the family for our individuals, and respecting them. Through that, building the ecosystem. Trust is the key factor, trust and respect. There is no bigger safety protocol than that. CCTV can be turned off, abuse can happen. Or how Nina said, abuse can happen without, like you may be watching on CCTV, but you may not understand that abuse is happening.
So I have to add, because it's a very important topic, if despite all our best efforts, something happens, how you respond to it is also going to set the tone for what your organization is willing to accept and what we are not willing to accept. Because forget about everything else. Forget about the fact, theek hai, the DSP working with my family member is a human being, but how dare they abuse my family member? What policy does the organization have to address that? There has to be zero tolerance for it, right? So these are important questions that you need to ask any organization. And you know, this is assisted living. When we've got someone from Arunima has got a job somewhere, what are their policies towards women? What happens if someone is violated emotionally, physically, or whatever? You know, so these things are all very important. You're not going to be able to limit it just to the home that the person is living in or the assisted living center. Wherever he or she goes, what are you going to be willing to accept for that person? How is the person going to speak up for themselves, or how are the persons responsible going to respond to it? These are also very important.
Thank you for that very important question. I think we've got an indicator that we are down to the last 2 questions. Or, yeah, I think the last 3 questions the persons were in the room. So please, पूछिए और एकदम संक्षेप में पूछिए.
So my name is Jitendra Solanki. So before I ask my question, just to answer on health insurance. Health insurance is available with all companies now. Every company has got a separate product for persons with disabilities. Also, few companies are covering within their existing health insurance policies, they're covering persons with disabilities, specifically autism. So even parents are able to get a higher coverage for their children. So health insurance, as far as concerned, it's available with all insurance companies. No companies can say no as per IIT regulation. So my question now, so we are all talking about assisted living. See, there are a lot of parents who do not want, for their child to go in assisted living. Also, there are, few parents like, who have got 2 children on, spectrum. So they don't have a choice. So when they look at, the future and the child living, in the same house with a support system, one of the area which lacks is service providers. Okay, we do not have a lot of service providers, we lack service providers, for such kind of parent. Are we working on that area? We are thinking that there will be a lot of service providers going in the future, independent of any, assisted living. They will be able to provide trained staff, for families who will, who wants to have the children living in their own home, within the family dynamics.
Yes, because whenever I talk about assisted living, I tell everybody, do not think of one template only. It can be an outreach program, it can be like a group home that she has envisaged for her son, or her son has envisaged. Alap wants to do that little, we have started extending our support to the families living in Gurgaon, because Gurgaon is a short, small city, everything is spread across 20-25 kilometers radius. And we have started approaching the families who have high functioning kids who are playing golf or doing work and all, but they may need assistance in some area, let's say financial management or going to a trip or going to a doctor. So we have started extending those kind of services and started putting the idea in it that you don't have to leave your comfort of your own house. We can become your extension. So, and I think whoever can, organization like Ananda or AFA and many other in different cities can do that, because, or we can also offer your caregivers to come and get the training and go back, and we can have an overarching kind of an umbrella kind of a support system extended to you. So these are the very much possibilities, and we are willing to do it. Second thing we were also telling the parents is that finding a land in say Durgapur, a 10-acre land can come in 1 crore. In Delhi and NCR, 1500 gaj 1 crore mein aata hai. So that is the difference in economics. So everybody is thinking of starting and saying one template only कि हम 15 acre लेंगे और all that, वो नहीं possible है. In expensive cities, even an apartment will work, And if you as a parent, you have 2 properties and you want your child not to stay away from you, you can offer your own home to an organization, say like Alap or this thing, and we can make it an extension of Alap or Arunima or Ananda and run it for you, and your child can live there, and whatever the rent will come, that person's sustainability will come through that. So it's like extending your support system, building bridges within the community, sharing resources. That's the only way forward.
I just want to add here that you spoke about the service professionals. So I want to share here that Keystone Institute has a training program for training direct support practitioners, and we do train master trainers who can go out, and so the attempt is to create this whole new profession of direct support, because there is a need, and the kind of population you mentioned, incidentally, just yesterday a parent reached out to me for something similar. So there is a need, and I just want to share that Keystone has a program which is running. We have a lot of master trainers who can go out and train. So if somebody is looking for, you can reach out to. And adding on to what Nina said, so there are some templates which have been discussed, but these are not the be all and the end all. There are people sitting here, I'm sure you can, so the title is Reimagine. So it's on all of us to start thinking outside the box and come up with newer models, because one size needn't fit for everybody. We need to be constantly on our feet, thinking, reimagining, how can we do the best by the individuals we are supporting. So I just want to
Thank you, Chitra. Next question, please.
Thank you. I just have 2 very quick questions, please. Are these only for autism children, or do you also support Down syndrome or other? So my child has Down syndrome and he's just 2 years, so it may sound very naive, and this is the first time I'm attending such an event. So I wanted to ask this. And the second is, what do these children do in these centers? What are the activities they do? Just beside taking them for a walk, as someone mentioned, and or other activities, do they also go for a job, or do they earn money, go outside, go out with some normal or typical friends? Do they do those kind of things as well?
Yes to all your questions. Next. This is the last question, please. Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. So I'm a working professional. So I have so many questions, but I'll just brief it up. I want to ask what kind of training the staff is getting. And with that being said, are the people living in the assisted living are also getting trained for concepts like shopping? Concepts, are they getting trained for NET level, natural environmental training? So, and also adding to that, since I'm also reimagining assisted living in the sense I have worked in various organizations. I've worked at Cognizable, Noida, and I've also researched about a lot of about it. So my question, with that being said, is that being living there, they're also learning. So are the parents getting update? Are the parents getting to know the kind of supervision these children are getting? You know, because when I have worked, you know, we used to give them weekly updates. We used to call them, brief them what is happening, and so having that kind of mindset in my head, when I think about assisted living, I feel like what are the kind of services? What are the training staff is getting? And you know what? I won't say success, or I'll just say what are they? The same question: what are they doing? Are they doing? Are they completing the concept of shopping and these different, daily life things? Are they learning that? So, what are the progress? What is the progress?
I can address the second part of it. Are the residents learning? So, activity of daily living in any assisted living is a primary focus, because those classroom settings. Because we can have an 18-year-old to a 28 or to a 38-year-old. So those tabletop activities are done with. That has its limited value. But right from waking up to sleeping, whatever you and I do and take it for granted, we cannot take it for granted from them. So their level of capabilities decide the curriculum or a program, so to speak, for those individuals. Specifically in ALA, we have the quarterly reports, you can say, that we share with the parents. It's called IGP, the Individual Growth Plan, which is structured around 4 aspects: the physical well-being or growth, intellectual well-being or growth, emotional, spiritual. Spiritual doesn't mean that they learn to meditate, but who are they? What is their role in their life? Where do they fit in the larger scheme of things? So around these 4 areas, we have assigned activities which we review every time in coordination with the parents as to what they think can be done and what the person himself is showing inclination towards, responding towards, and what is the feedback from the caregivers. So these areas also decides the structure for the training as well. This is what we are doing.
Training of the staff. Okay, so of course, like Nina said, that the day is like any day at home, and they all go to work. Each one of them goes to work, regardless of how high support need they are, right? So they all go to work. They spend the day working. They get up in the morning, get ready, go to work, come back, rest, have tea, have other activities like we do at home. And weekdays are more relaxed. So, and I think that's something that all the places are following. As far as the training is concerned, again, I think there are different ways of doing it. What we do is we train them on the job, right? We do that at our main center where we have teachers, etc. They also, because many of them come with a degree or whatever, but they have to learn the way we work. So they observe, they get feedback. So they spend some time initially observing and getting feedback. Then they are given people to support. Then again they get feedback. And of course the feedback is ongoing. It's every day. We actually have a session one day where we discuss what happened, how it is happening, how they are progressing, what are the changes we need to make, what is happening well, etc. So it's an ongoing, the training is for us an ongoing process. We train everybody on the job, whether it is at the assisted living or whether it's on the other programs that we run. On every program is the same thing.
I'm just going to add to that, Chitra mentioned the DSP course, the Direct Support Professional course. So a couple of years ago, in fact, Mary and I were part of this exercise where we got together as heads of organizations and said, okay, we've been doing our in-house training. What specifically are the skills that we want our staff to be trained in? And so a whole curriculum was created and a DSP course has been created that Chitra can give a lot more information about as well. So but this is an excellent course that trains people to work as direct support professionals with anyone. So in a vocational center, it can be in a home for elderly, it can be in a school, it can be in an assisted living center. So things like ethics, about valued social roles, about health and hygiene. So all these different things are actually now put together as a course, and that's the training that we do.
Right.
So I'll just share. Yeah, it takes place over a period of 4 months, but it's like part online, it's hybrid, part online and some in person. And anybody who's interested can reach out to me. And yeah, thank you so much.
Right, so it's my rather unpleasant duty to wind up this panel. It's been a long and fascinating morning, I think, and I would once again like to express my thanks to the amazing panelists who've spoken with so much honesty and clarity and addressed so many difficult questions with such grace and with such, eloquence, I would say. Many thanks to the wonderful audience. You've been an amazing audience. I think we can give you a round of applause. Not just the audience that's physically present here, but I believe a lot of persons would have joined online. So thank you so much for joining in. And I would also like to specifically express my thanks to the amazing sign language interpreters who have tirelessly done tireless sign language interpretation, so I think we can acknowledge their amazing work. And I think that's all that is left to be said, apart from the fact that I think there's any other items left?
Yeah.
Okay, I hand over to the host. Yeah.
Just as an ending note, like all of us have sat here, discussed, some of us have heard. So I urge you to strongly start reimagining. And also always keep in mind, we need to have people with lived experiences brought into designing and helping us reimagine assisted living. I just want to end with that.
So over to Amrita.
Thank you so much, Professor Shubhangi, and our panelists, Aparna Das, Neena Wagh, Chitra Paul, and Mary Borua for your thought-provoking discussion. It was enlightening and very, very interactive session. Thank you so much. So a small token of respect and appreciation, we have a small gift for you. Shubhangi. Now I request Rita to please give away a token of appreciation to the moderator, Professor Shubhangi. Thank you to the panelists. This event has been possible with the support of the Lalit team and Case of Suri Foundation. And now I request Akshay to say a few words.
Namaskar everyone, and thank you for being here. So I don't have much to say because everything was said here, and I only want to say that at KSF, at the Lalit, our primary objective is to ensure that we collaborate. And when we collaborate, good things happen, like today. It is very important that we strengthen our mission of building an inclusive world by supporting each other. There are so many ways, so many horizons in our lives that we don't really explore because they are not visible to us. And we miss out on them. And then there are opportunities that come to our way, wherein not just through real life experiences based, but also just by being in those spaces. We unlock, experience, and get ourselves out there. And this is what at the Lalit we are constantly trying to build, that every person who walks into our hotels, they need to find themselves. They need to find themselves reflected, they need to find themselves represented, and more than just that, they need to find themselves celebrated. And this is our objective. And I am very proud of the fact that organizations like Action for Autism, Muskan, and so many others across country are partnering with organizations like ours to build this inclusive India for all of us. We are very glad of the fact that at the Lalit, and Advait parents are sitting right here. Advait is somebody on 70% autism spectrum and is bringing life to this building. A 35 years of legacy at the Lalit New Delhi, and this one individual is bringing life by playing piano in our hotels. And you must be hearing, as soon as you must have walked into the hotel, you must have heard the amazing songs, amazing lyrics, amazing stuff that is constantly coming out of his piano, and we are very lucky that we are constantly partnering with parents like them. One thing that I definitely would like to share is that please remember that we are all here in the process of learning, but at the same time unlearning. And we have to unlearn a lot of stuff that is constantly being told to us about persons with disabilities, about being a woman, about being a man with certain characteristics which maybe are not mainstream, about certain characteristics of somebody who is an acid attack warrior because their journey doesn't stop there, about somebody who is born different and is maybe a transgender person or is maybe an intersex individual. And we need to now debunk all of those theories because the beauty of our planet is that all of us are different. And we need to embrace these differences that we are born with. Even our two eyes are similar but not the same. Our two hands are similar but not the same. Our one half of the body is similar to the other half but is not the same. And this is how we need to embrace these differences. And anytime, anywhere, and for anything and everything, the Lalit, the KSF is all here to stand with you, not behind you, not in front of you, but with you right there. Because we don't help, we support. We assist, we collaborate, and we build together an environment wherein you and I can see each other as a proud ally, as a proud accomplice to each other to achieve what India should definitely achieve in the momentum of being the largest economy on this planet, but nothing without the people who are on different spectrums, who are on different horizons, because in this progress, all of us are together. And those people include each of us, irrespective of our sex, gender, sexuality, orientation, religion, region, caste, criticism, anything. And this is what we need to build. So thank you for being here, thank you for partnering with us, and let's just keep partnering because these partnerships are the only reason from where we will actually build that. So thank you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Shubhangi. Thank you so much. It was amazing. And we are coming to the end of the day, but we have amazing lunch for you all. Please join us for lunch and have an amazing day for today. Thank you so much. Have a great day.